森でも、そんなに特別なことは分かってないんですよ。Imagine that when you are summoned before the government panel, even though you haven't committed any crimes or been formally charged, you all political views, accused of disloyalty, and asked to incriminate your friend and associates. If you don't cooperate, you risk jail or losing your job. This is what happened in the United States in the 1950s. The Republican exposed suspected communist, named after its notorious practitioner. The phenomenon known as Marxism destroyed thousands of lives and careers. For over a decade, American political leaders trampled democratic freedom in the name of protecting them. During the 1930s and 1940s, there had been an active and small communist party in the United States. Its record was mixed. Crucial roles were the progressive struggle, labor, and civil rights. It also supported union. Instead, the American Communist Party faced attacks from conservatives and business leaders, as well as liberals, who criticized its ties with the Soviet regime. During World War II, when the USSR allied against Hitler, some American communists actually spied the ocean, and the Cold War escalated, and this became known. Domestic communism came to be seen as a threat to the national security. The eliminating that threat soon turned into the longest-lasting and most widespread episode of political repression in American history. Spurred on the bureaucrat, politician, journalist, and businessman, the campaign widely exaggerated the danger of communist subversion. The people behind him harassed anyone suspected of left-of-center views or associated with those who did. If it hung modern art on your wall, had a multiracial social circle, or signed petitions against nuclear weapons, you might just have been communist. Set in late 1940s, FBI J. Edgar Hoover used the resources of his agency to hunt down such communists in position influence with American society. The narrow criterion that Hoover and his allies used to screen federal employees spread to the rest of the country. Soon, Harvard Studio and universities, car manufacturers, and thousands of other public employees, and imposed same political trust on the men and women who worked for them. Meanwhile, Congress conducted its own witch hunt, subpoenaing hundreds of people to testify in investigative bodies like the House Un-American and Activities Committee. If they refused to cooperate, they could be jailed for contempt or, more commonly, fired, blacklisted. Ambitious politicians like Richard Nixon and Joseph McCarthy used such hearings for them weapons, accusing Democrats in South and communism, deliberately losing China to the communist bloc. McCarthy, a senator from Wisconsin, became notorious for an ever-changing list of alleged communist state departments. Egged on by other politicians, he continued outrageous accusations with disturbing fabricated evidence. Many citizens reviled McCarthy, while others praised him. And the Korean War broke out. McCarthy seemed vindicated. Once he became chair, Central Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations in 1953, McCarthy's recklessness increased. It was his investigation of the Army that finally turned public opinion against him and diminished his power. McCarthy's colleagues in the Senate censured him. Less than 3 years later, probably alcoholism. McCarthyism ended as well. It had ruined hundreds of if not thousands of lives, drastically narrowed the American spectrum. Its damage to the institutions would be long-lasting. In all likelihood, there were Democrats and Republicans who knew the anti-communist purges, but feared the directly opposing them careers. Even the Supreme Court failed the witch hunt, condemning serious violence of constitutional rights and national security. Was domestic communism a sure threat to the American government? Reaction to it was so extreme that caused far more damage than the threat itself. In this uncertainty to attack unpopular minorities in the name of patriotism, could it all happen again? Powerful position in the world, but was the president accused of misusing that power? Only one has left office as a result. Does Richard Nixon deserve to remember for modern scandal that ended his presidency? Find out as we put the disgraced president's legacy on trial. In history, Richard Nixon. Order. Now, who's the defendant today? Some kind of club? No, Your Honor. This is Milhouse Nixon, the 37th President of the United States who served from 1969 to 1974. Hold on. As we're none of read President serve, where you see President Nixon resigned for the good of the nation. Pardon, President Ford, who took over, he resigned because he was about to be impeached, exposed. What we took this crime, Your Honor. The Watergate scandal was one of the grossest abuses of presidential power in history. Broke into the Democratic National Committee headquarters to wiretap the offices. After that, the election campaign. It was established that the President did not order this burglary. But as soon as he randomly did cover it up while lying about for months. It was for the good of the country. He did so much during his time in office, could have so much more, with a scandal jeopardizing his accomplishment. Accomplishment? Yes, Your Honor. Did you know it was President Nixon who proposed the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency and signed the National Environmental Policy Act into law, not to mention Endangered Species Act, Marine Mammal Protection Act, Expansion the Clean Air Act? Sounds pretty progressive? Hardly. Nixon's presidential campaign called such versus civil rights movement. Speaking on civil rights, the prosecution may be surprised to an amendment banning gender discrimination in education and ensure desegregation of schools occurred peacefully and ruled 18 so that students could vote. He didn't have much concern after 4 were shot by the National Guard at Kent State. Instead, he called them bomb, protesting the Vietnam War, a war he had campaigned on ending, but he did end it. He ended it 2 years after taking office. Meanwhile, his campaign, his previous president's peace talks urging South Vietnamese hold out the support. So over 1 million more Vietnamese died for nothing. Interfering in foreign negotiation isn't that reason? It is, Your Honor, a clear violation of the Logan Act 1799. I think we'll forget President Nixon's manifest achievement. It was he who normalized ties with China, forcing economic ties continue today. Are we so sure that's a good thing? And don't forget his support coup to replace democracy. Allende is a brutal dictator. It was Byron, the reason we opposed communism to begin with was just fear of the lower class rising up against the rich. President Nixon could never predict the violence of Pinochet's regime, and being anti-communist didn't mean neglecting poor. He proposed guaranteed basic income for all American families, still a radical concept today, and he even comprehensive healthcare reform just kind of passed 40 years later of this vascular business Your Honor, President Nixon may have violated a law to the real harm compared to our accomplishment while in office. The harm was to democracy itself. The whole point of the ideas Nixon claimed to promote abroad is to raise accountable to people, and when they hold themselves above the law, whatever reason, those ideas and their mind, them accountable to the law. Many politicians have compromised some principles to achieve result, but law-breaking and cover-ups threaten the brave public and nation bosom. Those who do so may find legacy tainted, as put on trial. Imagine you're watching runaway trolley run down the tracks, straight toward to 5 workers who can't escape. You happen to be standing next to the laboratory control. Here's the problem. That track has a worker on the 2, just 1. What do? Do you sacrifice 1 person to save 5? This is a truly problem. Original escrow drama, Roosevelt, devised in 1967. It's popular because it forces how to choose, and no good choices. Do we pick the best outcome, or stick more code? In one survey, about 90% of respondents said that it is okay to in other cities, including a virtual reality simulation of the drama of similar results. These judgments are consistent with philosophical principles, utilitarianism, moral correct decision. The one maximizes as well-being, greatest of number of people. The 5 right outweigh the 1. Outcomes requires condemning some to death. And there is no second track, but there is a very large man and the bridge next to you. If we push him over, his body was the trolley, saving the 5 workers, but he'll die. To utilitarian decision is exactly the same. There is 1 life to save 5, but in this case, only about 10% of people need that I throw the man onto the track. Our instinct says this allowing them to die. Collateral damage is just fear. For reason doing such experiment, and did virtual reality study more willing to sacrifice men than women. Researchers have seen brain activity of people thinking through the classic and bridge versions. Both scenarios activate areas brain in conscious decision making and emotional responses. But in the bridge version, the emotional response is much stronger. So, in the area of the brain associated processing internal conflict. Why the difference? One explanation is pushing someone to their death feels more personal. Activation of emotion aversion of killing the person. Conclusion because we know their logical choice. Teleology criticized philosophers and ecologists. They argue that reveal anything because it promises it's unrealistic that study participants don't take it seriously. But new technology is making this kind of ethical analysis more important than ever. For example, you may have to handle choices like causing smaller to prevent a larger one. Meanwhile, researching autonomous military drone when to attack the high-value target. If we want this action to be ethical, we have to decide in advance how to value human life and judge a greater good. So researchers who study autonomous systems are collaborating philosophers to address the complex problem. Ethics intimacy, which goes shows hyperscale dramas can wander on the collision course with the real world. In the future, everywhere, everywhere, the greatest team have played after many years that the generation fans around the world have checked them all, because in this journey, no method that gets this asset. No single definition of general intelligence, and that left open to keep the youth in service of the preconceived sense about intelligence. What started as a way to identify those who needed academic help ideology. To suit of strength. At that time, many people believed in eugenics, the desirable and desirable genetic trait could and should be controlled in humans. There are many programs with this line of thinking, among them the idea that intelligence not only fixed and inherited, but also linked to a person's race. Under the influence of eugenics, scientists use the results of methods in order to make erroneous claims that certain racial world in intellectual superior to ourselves, without taking into account that many of the recruits tested were new immigrants to the United States who lacked home education or English exposure. Erroneous intelligence hierarchy of ethnic groups. The intersection of eugenics and IQ testing influenced the policy as well. In 1924, the state village allowing the sterilization of with low IQ score, a decision the United States Supreme Court upheld. In the government authorized the model based on low IQ. Following the Holocaust and the civil rights movement, the discriminatory uses of IQ tests were challenged on both moral and scientific grounds. Scientists began to gather evidence of environment on IQ. For example, as IQ tests were periodically recalibrated over the 20th century, new generation has scored consistently higher on tests than each previous generation. This phenomenon, known as the Huron fact, was the first inherited evolutionary trait. Instead, the cause was likely environmental, improving better healthcare and better nutrition. In the mid-20th century, psychologists also attempted to use the IQ test to evaluate things rather than general intelligence, particularly schizophrenia, depression, and the psychiatrics. These diagnoses evaluate the subset the test to determine IQ. A practice reader of research found that not yield the clinical use information. Today, IQ tests employ similar design elements and types of questions as the test, so we have better techniques identifying bystander. The neuron used to diagnose psychiatric is still sometimes used to diagnose learning disabilities against the advice. Disabilities and the results can be used to determine appropriate System 11. IQ test results have been used to justify ideology. That doesn't mean test itself worthless. In fact, it doesn't get of measuring reasoning and problem solving skills. It's that isn't the same thing as measuring person's potential. Complicated political, historical, scientific, and left out in IQ testing. More and more researchers agree on this point, rejecting that individual can be categorized by a single numerical score. Speaking of question practices, should we get rid of standardization altogether? Find what these tests actually measure with this video, or learn more information optimism with these videos. When Reverend Jim Jones founded People's Temple, few could have imagined horrifying end. Though this religious movement rose in popularity and the support from some San Francisco politicians. But in 1977, amidst the comment of Johnstown and Guyana, built as a utopian paradise, the colony was more congressional delegation investigation conditions. Jones executed his final plan. On November 18, 900 men and women died after being forced to drink poison. Grisly image immortalized a short-handed son for single-minded, cult-like thinking. Courage. Today there are thousands of cults around the world. It's important to know two things about them. First, not all religious. Some are political, therapy-based, based on self-improvement or otherwise. Flip side, not all new religions. What we're referring to as cult. What exactly defined as a modern understanding? Why do people join them? Broadly speaking, a cult is a group of movement should commitment to usually extreme ideology that typically embodied charismatic leader. Turn out as deadly as Johnstown or Heaven's Gate. It's ended and mass suicide people. Most cults share some basic characteristics. A typical cult requires a high level of commitment for its members and maintain a strict hierarchy, separating unsuspecting supporters, recruits, and working rebels through its doctrine. Roundup required a recipe for change, a new member into a true believer. And most importantly, influence controlled to keep members obedient, little tolerant, and disagreement or external scrutiny. You might wonder that some of these descriptions might also apply to established religions. In fact, the word cults are debated, but in time, separate its members from others rather than providing guidelines to live a better life. Occults personal and family relationships to final assets and living arrangement. Cults demand obedient human leaders. Or all three. Cults use personal charisma to attract followers. Further expansion works like a pyramid scheme. Early members recruiting new ones. Cults are skilled to target, often focusing on the near-term area. Whoever reason undergoes some personal or professional loss. Loneliness and desire may make one susceptible to friendly people offering community. The recruitment process can be suitable, sometimes taking months to establish a relationship. In fact, more than 2/3 of cult members are recruited by a friend, family member, or co-worker whose invitations are harder to refuse. Once in the cult, multiple forms of indoctrination. Some predominant inclination mimics social behavior for others. Other methods may be more intense, use techniques involving guilt, shame, and fear. And in many cases, members may willingly submit others to be run from the wall. The cult environment discourages the critical thinking, making it hard to avoid doubt. Everything around you is moving absolutely pace. The resulting internal conflict, known as keeps you trapped, as each compromise makes it painful, even deceived. And the most condemned to death, they can still harmful by denying basic freedom of thought and associations cause stunted psychological and emotional. A particular problem for children who are deprived of normal development activities and milestones. Nevertheless, many cult members eventually find a way out. The realization that influence was the cult falls apart due to external pressure or scandals. Many cults may be hard identified. Some beliefs, no matter how strange, are protected under religious freedom. But when the practices involve harassment, threat, irregular activities, or abuse, the law can intervene. Quite a good. Like exploiting you as their own. was turned at Princess for the last banana. He agreed on this route. You is 1, 2, 3, or 4. Player 1 wins. If the biggest is 5 or 6, player 2 wins. Let's try twice more. Here, player 1 wins. And here is player 2. So who do you wanna be? At first glance, it may seem like player 1 has the advantage since phone numbers is the highest, but actually, player 2 has an approximately 56 chance of winning each match. One is that possible combination you can get 2 dice, and then each player wins. It's combination. Mathematicians call this advance. Now we can see by the first glance it was wrong, even then for 1, and player 2 only has 2. The chance of each number being greatest is not the same. There is only 1 in 30 chance. That 1 is the highest number, but the 11 in 36 chance is the highest. So if any of these combinations allows player 1 and this combination allows player 2 will run. Out of the 36 possible combinations, 16 was and 20 is player 2 the win. You can think about this way too. The only way player 1 can win is both dice show 1, 2, 3. Player 2 showing 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's 4 out of 6. The result of each die roll independently from the calculate the chain probability independently. Multiplying the probability, the chance of gaining 1, 2, 3, or 4. Both dice. 4 out of 6 times 4 out of 6. 6. Because the summer has the chance of player 2 winning 36 out of 36 minus 16 out of 36 or 20. But this doesn't mean the player will win, or even that it says player 2 is doing 20 of them. That's why events like death rolling calculate the theoretical probabilities of each outcome. You might expect the result if you examine just a few events. But if you repeat those many times, the frequency of a specific outcome, like a player to win, approaches the theoretical probability. That's why we got writing down all the possibilities and counting up each outcome. So if you succeed, this island plane is for player 2 will eventually win with this. Banana would be long gone. You and the fellow castaway playing dice for the last band. Advantage. For numbers is the highest bilaterally. The player has an approximately 60% chance of winning each match, unless that is precise. Each sound charge possibility combination of dice if rolled 4 and 5. 3 and 1 gives player 1, 1, 2, 3 here. There are 30 possible combinations each with the same chance happening. Mathematics calls equal program events. If then they have player has to on 36 chance that one will be the highest number. Even 36. Even